All right, before you listen to this episode, just have to give you a little notification. I had a lot of issues with this recording, so my audio is going to sound kind of squished. Um, yeah, it's not something that I can repair, and there's no way that I could re-record a 2-hour episode pre-edits. So yeah, it's going to sound a little bit weird on my end, but the guest sounds great, so that's cool. What is up, all you Daikaiju dudes and monstrous mademoiselles? Welcome to The World is My Burrito, aka Twimby, a podcast that dives so deep it just kind of ends up right back on the surface, but in an alternate world. Today marks January 18th, 2024, and you are listening to episode 22, where I am being joined by the podcast man of mystery himself, Zach Deuce. What is up, Zach?
Hey, Corey, how are you? It's good to be on your podcast.
Yeah, finally. I've
Finally.
I've been on your podcast a few times now. The one that you run. It may not be yours, but
it's not mine. I do not take ownership of the Neatcast. I'm a replacement guest, and that's why our numbers tank. That's why. So I apologize for your episode sucking.
Well, it's good to have you on here, and I'm glad that we were able to finally get something worked out.
Well, I love that you have a massive, like, your topics are a shotgun spread. I never know what you're going to come out with, but it's always a fun deep dive. And some of it is stuff that I know, and then other times I'm going, I didn't know a damn thing about Astro Boy, but you've been diving deep into all sorts of fun stuff. I know nothing of the character, but I'm learning a lot.
That's good. I am glad to hear that. Well, listeners, since there's a guest, you should know by now this is a Let's Talk About It episode. And we're covering Legendary Pictures 2023 series, Monarch, Legacy of Monsters. For personal history, we're just going to get right into this. Zack and I actually, all things considered, met in the podcast world because of Godzilla on Podcasters Assemble.
True.
Yeah. So, Zach, what is your history with Godzilla?
So my history with Godzilla, I forget what age I was. It was either King Kong versus Godzilla, or it was Ghidorah, the three-headed monster. And I'm leaning towards King Kong because I had seen the stop motion original King Kong because my parents owned that, and probably in the rental store I saw King Kong, because I think I'd seen like King Kong Lives, like the one where he climbs the Twin Towers, and that one got a sequel because he got a robot heart or whatever. And then there was, what's this giant monkey fighting this giant lizard? What is this all about? So I think it was King Kong versus Godzilla was my first trip into the world of kaiju, and instantly fell in love with the character. Went all the way through the different franchise. Obviously the Showa had the bulk of all the movies that I watched through. I remember the Heisei's coming out, which actually was really exciting because Showa had already come out by the time I was born. But every once in a while, I would hear about, there's a new Godzilla film coming out in Japan, and then all of a sudden, boom, Biollante hit in America, and I went, what is this? What is this Godzilla versus Ghidorah again? What is all this fun stuff? So I've been a fan of the franchise probably since first grade, second grade at the latest.
That is very cool. You have a kind of a very similar history to me as far as getting into it in your youth. Because with me, it was thrust upon me. We had the Godzilla vs. Megalon VHS,
which is, as I think you and I have discussed off camera, how some of the later Showa films were geared far more towards kids. When you get to, I forget what point. Yeah, which film do they make this shift?
Oh man, let's see. The first children. Well, actually, it's probably pretty easy because I think the big shift was Godzilla's Revenge.
Yeah. That was I remember Son
Yeah.
of Godzilla being a big one that was definitely geared more towards
yeah.
being a kids, and Invasion of the Astro Monster and Ebra. That was the one that I remember being like. It took me forever to watch that one because that one I don't think was supposed to be Godzilla originally. Wasn't that supposed to be like King Kong?
I think so.
But they,
yeah.
But they change it because they wake Godzilla up with electricity.
Yeah.
And he was weak to electricity, and there was some continuity at one point, and then other times like screw it.
Whatever. That's definitely very true, and they did get very like child friendly because even as wacky as Hedorah is, like one of the main three characters or one of the main characters is a child, and they could never really recover from it because that's sort of a great example of like it's not really a children's movie, even though a child's a main character. And then you get to like Mechagodzilla and Terror of Mechagodzilla, where they're trying to return more to this like serious Godzilla, but it just like they're great movies, but they're still not the same as like the original or some of the earlier ones.
No, there was definitely a shift. Especially once Godzilla started becoming a good guy. Like then you got the kind of the goofier shenanigans came out because then Godzilla was no longer wasn't necessarily a threat in the Showa eras. I mean, maybe if he accidentally threw a monster into a building, but I mean, a lot of those fights were now happening away from cities. The bad monsters would attack the city, and then Godzilla would show up and fight them away from the city. But then in Heisei, I prefer the storyline of Heisei just because it is. I think overall it's just a great story arc from 84 all the way to Destroya, and how they all directly connect, and they do a good job connecting for the most part.
So speaking of connecting, what has your experience with Legendary been so far, since that is truly it's geared towards a universe?
So I have enjoyed Legacy so far. I did enjoy the first Godzilla film, although of Legendary, even though we only had, I think, 18 minutes of Godzilla when it came down to it. And that was a case where less is more wasn't the best choice, especially when you've got Godzilla fighting other monsters.
Yeah.
Since then, I've enjoyed each film more and more. I don't really have much to complain about. They are definitely you can feel the American versions of these films. But I think some of the directors do a good job of taking elements of the original Toho films, incorporating it, and I think they're not trying to replace it, but it doesn't have that Toho feel, but I enjoy them. As with everything, and we'll get into it a little bit with Monarch, as you continue to connect things, as great as that is, things will become trickier. Things will become much harder, and not that we're going to go down the road of MCU, but MCU, when they started that and started connecting everything, greatest, childhood fantasy coming to life. Iron Man, Captain America, Thor, Hulk, all these characters all together. Holy shit. And now in Legendary, we've got King Kong and Godzilla, and some of the original Toho monsters have made appearances. And we have some really cool, unique Titans that have been created, which I really like that part of the Legendary, world, is the Titans that they have created. I mean, the Mutos,
yeah.
Whatever they serve their purpose, as kind of bland, massive, organisms, but some of the other Titans are actually pretty neat.
Yeah, they do have this show was good because Legendary is doing Legendary's thing. King of the Monsters and Godzilla vs. Kong did have Toho characters in it. And they showed like just slight screen time, a lot of really cool, unique monsters, unique to the monster verse.
Yep.
But yeah, I've been really happy with what they're doing, and really hope they just keep going in the direction they are and not trying to make it Japanese, because I feel like that's where everything's going to go straight downhill.
Now, when Legendary is allowed to be legendary within reasons, when you go back and you look at their films, they have been a part of some really great films. Not everyone is a banger. Not every one of these, as I scroll through the list, are amazing, memorable films. But I know that when I see Legendary on the screen, I know I'm going to be entertained.
Yeah.
Jurassic World wasn't the greatest Jurassic Park World movie, but it was a strong reboot, and I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
There's different ones that you can pick out, but let them do their thing. Don't try to be Toho. Toho is going to do Toho. Legendary be legendary.
Yeah, yeah. And I definitely stand by that. So the series that we're talking about, Monarch Legacy of Monsters, came away on Rotten Tomatoes with a tomato meter at 89%, with an audience scoring of 78%. Now, with that in mind, what is your spoiler-free hot take, and would you recommend this show? Do you feel, and also, I guess, do you feel like the ratings are merited?
I feel the ratings are merited just because of how people are. I felt that the people that I feel that it's higher than 79. I would certainly rate this in the 85 to 90 for me. Mm-hmm. I was entertained by the story. We did get monster kaiju involvement, but I knew going into it, this was not going to be a monster series where you're just going to see monsters the entire time, because it's about Monarch. Very similar to Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. People had similar complaints when that show first started, because they expected, because that was post-Avengers, well, we're going to get superheroes, we're going to get super villains, we're going to get all this. No, you're going to get Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. And that was a series that I did enjoy. It went off the rails near the end. But I enjoyed how they tied it into the MCU, and I enjoy how this ties into the Legendary series for Godzilla. I do recommend it. Just know that you're not going to get a Monster of the Week, X-Files style episodic type of show. It's about Monarch and the history, and I love the dynamic between the past and present of the show.
Yeah. It's not a children's show, like you said. It's not the Monster of the Week. Yeah, I also agree that the score is merited in that like 80% range. I do recommend watching it. And one of the things that you touched on, and I feel like the most common comment, is that people were upset that there was too much people and not enough monsters.
Yep.
For those, if you're listening to this episode and you haven't seen it yet, this show is really, it's not showing you what Monarch does. It's showing you why Monarch is. It's probably the best way to put it.
We still don't see a lot of what Monarch does. We see a little bit of it, but not a whole lot. You do see the reason why, and the history part of it I do enjoy. Do you touch on like your favorite part at all of the series at any point?
Oh, yeah. We'll get into that.
All right.
So with that out of the way, and again, for those who haven't seen the series, this is the summary. Following the thunderous battle between Godzilla and the Titans that leveled San Francisco and the shocking revelation that monsters are real, Monarch Legacy of Monsters tracks two siblings following in their father's footsteps to uncover their family's connection to the secretive organization known as Monarch. Clues lead them into the world of monsters and ultimately down the rabbit hole to Army Officer Lee Shaw, taking place in the 1950s, and half a century later, where Monarch is threatened by what Shaw knows. So this series released from November 17th, 2023 through January 12th, 2024, totaling 10 episodes, running anywhere between 41 and 50 minutes each. And the time period spans from 1952 all the way through 2017. And if you have forgotten all of the scores, the Skull Island movie happens in 73. The Skull Island anime series happens somewhere between 90 and 95. Godzilla, the first film, happens in 2014 with King of the Monsters in 19 and GVK at 2024. So this is spanning, it's hopping films, it's before things, it's after things. It is everywhere.
It makes reference. You see some of the moments that were referenced in some of the earlier films, especially back in the 50s. And then this is kind of leading up to the King of the Monsters timeline of where everything is.
All right, so if you don't want this massive, unidentified, tasty organism spoiled, then throw this back in the fridge. Okay, so I feel like the biggest question, because it really threw me through a loop in episode 1, and it runs through the entire series. How did you feel about the time skipping, the perpetual jumping back and forth?
I didn't mind it because I knew what was happening, and I'm fine with that because you're telling two stories that have similar similar things going on. They're running adjacent to each other, and they are going to connect eventually. I don't like when you're doing time skipping, you don't realize it, and then at the end, they come in and they're like, oh, we got you. Look at that. You didn't know about it. Yeah, you hated it, but this is why. It's so good. I hate those. And that has happened with other shows, and I don't watch those shows anymore. But this, I have no problem with time jumping, especially where part of my favorite things are the Russells. I love the fact that they're playing the same guy. And, they're both MCU, alumni, and they do a damn good job, father and son playing the same guy.
And I will say, it's kind of funny at first, when you see both of them, it's like, I mean, I could tell they're related, but they don't look that similar. And then there's one shot where they're, I think they fade from past to present or vice versa, and they're in the exact same point of the frame. And it's like, oh no, they're identical. They're damn identical.
The nose and the eyes, and then just down to the facial expression that they were doing. They were able to show that really well. But I understand what you're saying. Yeah,
Kurt Russell's also older, and he's got a little more flesh on him now. He looks real good for a man of 90. But yeah, and I imagine if you were to put overlay Escape from LA Kurt Russell onto his son, it'd be identical. So for the time jump thing, one of the reasons I really appreciated it was there's a title card for every single swap.
Yes.
You always know where you are. Now, if you want to call it a downside, that does mean that you can't look away, because they will, in some episodes, they'll go from I think in the first episode, they go from 56 to 52. So it's a little, if you're not paying attention, you end up wondering, like, these people know each other. Straight away, Keiko, Dr. Miura, is taken away. And then we go to having never met her before, or Bill Randa, for that matter. So that, don't look down, because I caught myself doing that for the last, I don't know, episode or two, not knocking them, not saying that they're boring, but it's just I happen to look down and then something would happen within like 5 or 10 seconds. And I'm like, what the fuck just happened? Where am I right now? Again, there are title cards, so you could just knock it back a few seconds and you're like, okay, good. And I think that's
I will
a good
say
feature.
Also, what does help though is when you have two completely different casts, and that I know that when I'm seeing the younger version of everybody, I know I'm sometime in the 50s, in case I did miss something. So I know that I'm somewhere back where I need to know. And then when I'm seeing the kids, and older Shaw and whoever else, all right, we're back in the 2015-ish. The ones where you definitely had to pay attention was in the 50s, because that was a lot of exposition and just building of the legacy of the world. So that was where you really had to pay attention, where they did more jumping in the 50s because they had to. And the 2015 storyline was more continuous, of like one after another, of trying to follow the kid storyline.
Yeah. They do a great job of separating, like the color scheme will always kind of tell you where you are. Obviously the dress code. But yeah, I did really enjoy it. I kind of like the bouncing around, because in some instances that does manufacture a lot of drama, where it's like something's about to happen and it hard cuts to a different time period. So I kind of like that, because it always leaves you like wondering, okay, well, I'm still being entertained, but I really want to know what happens next. And it might not always be answered in that episode. So it's almost like having a micro cliffhanger.
They did a good job, I feel, of setting stuff up for the next episode, because there was plenty of episodes as I'm watching it going, yeah, it's almost midnight, I should go to bed. No, all right, I'm going to watch another one.
Yeah.
Because the way that they ended that, I want to know what happens next.
Yeah, absolutely. The continuity is good, and one thing, in looking this up, it's 10 episodes, and there are 5 directors. So there's 2 episodes each. So 1 and 2 are one director, 2 and 3 are director, so on and so forth. Or 1 and 2, 3 and 4. And I feel like you can really tell that, because
a little bit different styles. They had different writers for the most part. Chris Black did 3 of the episodes, it looks like, but you can see the subtle director's style, and like you see that also with some of the more recent Star Trek, like Strange New Worlds. Like Jonathan Frakes, you can tell a Jonathan Frakes episode, and it's always fucking spectacular. There's certain directors that when you'll watch an episode of something, go, all right, they know their shit, they know what they're doing, and they get the detail, they get the intimate part of that character's story, they get that reaction that they want to get. And I don't think any of the directors did a bad job by any means. I think they all did a great job. I don't know, I can't tell you who my favorite is. I enjoyed all the episodes, and they were all different enough. Some are kind of the spy thriller, some are the action adventure, some are the holy shit, it is like a monster of the week, what are we going to do? They run a good variety of type of genre of shows. but it's all just during one continuous storyline.
Yeah. And like one of the reasons I brought up the different directors, and in talking about the cliffhangers, is I kind of feel like the directors are cliffhanging their own episodes, where like 1 and 2 might have a greater cliffhanger than 2 and 3. Though I think the end of 2 is still on the ship with the Ion Dragon. But still, for the most part, it's like they're cliffhanging themselves and then kind of passing it. Like you said, there's like a genre shift, you know, where they're passing it to the next person, and then that person takes over another mini story for 2 episodes.
Yeah, they didn't do a musical, but
no. That maybe that'll be you know, Christmas.
maybe
We'll get the legendary Monsters Christmas special. I guess before we get super deep into the monsters, because this is very person heavy, I guess kind of a twofer. Did you have a particularly favorite actor or actors? And how did you feel about the acting overall?
Overall, I liked the acting because you didn't pick out anyone just phoning it in or not being believable. I think of all the main characters, I believed and connected with them for the most part. Again, I think the Russells, I just loved their work. I did like how Kurt Shaw is definitely different than Wyatt Shaw, but you know that makes sense because he's been disenfranchised. He's just not invested anymore. He's given up because of the shit that happened. But then Godzilla shows back up, and all of a sudden he's like, "Holy crap! All right, well, back to it." And at one point, you're not sure if his character is still a good guy or not.
Yeah, I really liked that because it's kind of like once he truly got the reins in his hands, because you know, where it starts off is he's letting the kids kind of direct everything, but basically once he reaches a certain point, and it's when they finally find Hiroshi, that's when he's like, no, now that we know he's alive, now that we're so close, and you know, we still don't know what he's doing, but now that everything is so close, now I'm taking over. You know, because before, I don't know, his motivations were definitely there, but he knew he needed the kids, I guess. But I guess as soon as they found Hiroshi, he's like, yeah, I don't actually need you anymore.
Yeah, I never fully thought like he's definitely a bad guy, but it was one of those, all right, his motivation has changed, and he's not going about this the cleanest way.
Yeah.
Like as he was in the beginning and how he was in the 50s, about how he was a squeaky clean military guy, you know, nation first, his friends first, and now it's kind of, you know, his friend is still first, but it's also a bit of revenge, and it's a little bit more muddled for his future mission.
Well, and he's also, you can tell he's tired. Like he is the weight of Godzilla's attack. It is very heavy on him. And I think that's kind of, you know, when he sees Godzilla moving in person again, that reignites that spark that it's like, okay, well, you know, the world changed a lot while it was gone. You know, destruction could have been prevented if anyone had ever listened to anything that we ever did before. And, you know, now he's like, okay, I love peace with all my heart, and I don't care how many people I have to kill to get it.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's nobody that stuck out that I disliked. I think, I don't know, May had a very, as you got into it, a far more complicated backstory, which I didn't find unbelievable, but it did tie into the future films, just to kind of make that connection. Again, I didn't dislike her character, but at one point I went, all right, she's she's heavily involved in all the right things to connect everything.
Yeah.
It's not unheard of. It's just part of the story, I guess.
Her, I have nothing against the actress. Her story, like May's story, felt a little too repeat because she sees a way out. There's like clandestine stuff going on in the background with her, but there's also clandestine stuff going on in the background with Lee Shaw. She's going with Kentaro for a free ride, basically, and it's basically what Shaw is doing, is because Shaw can't do anything without Kentaro. So a lot of her kind of feels recycled, immediately recycled. And like, I could see her working for Apex, but I wasn't a fan of the hacker trying to hide from everyone. I feel like that could have been done a little bit different, but like acting wise, I think she was fine. But I think that particular story, I don't know. Like, now that I think about it, it really just feels just like Shaw. It's a second Shaw. She meets him under odd circumstances. Again, hitches a ride with him as like a ticket out. There's betrayal at roughly the same points in time.
From a few different people, yeah.
Yeah. So hers, I think it's because there was too much going on with other people, that like her story, I almost feel like it could have shined later, like maybe go into the backstory in a season 2.
It wasn't as fleshed out because your main focus was the siblings and their connection and their search for their father. So I think she got overshadowed by that. Her story got overshadowed by that. Again, I don't think any actor or actress did a bad job. I believed everybody. And I think they did a good job of showing growth of characters. Tim, you're not sure what the fuck's going on with him at first. You can tell that he's not an operative. But he's like, all right, well, I guess I'm going to take care of this thing that, someone's hacking into. His boss, Natalia? Natalia Verdugo, deputy director. She has a minor arc. She's still, acting deputy director of Monarch, but goes from this, someone we need to be feared and not fuck with, which is, she's in charge of Monarch. You don't want to do that, to, all right, she is going to start to put the people first and actually do something with the organization. I think there also could have been a little bit better way to do that with her character, because it did happen very suddenly, but you had 10 episodes, and again, you were focusing on the kids. They're the main characters, and she's a reoccurring character.
She's not in a whole lot. Tim, though, like you said,
Tim's in almost every one.
Yeah, he's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
He reminds me a lot of the Doctor character from the 98 Godzilla animated series.
Nick Tatopoulos?
Not Nick Tatopoulos, but the other guy who always wore a lab coat, was allergic to everything, had facial hair, but like long hair and a ponytail. Kind of like the hippie scientist. Maybe not doctor, but he was, I guess scientist doctor. But he just kind of reminds me of that guy, where it's like he clearly does not belong out on the field. And I did find like humor in the fact that the 2 times he goes out into the field, like he gets his shit kicked in. Like literally the first time he sees Godzilla face to face.
One guy. He's the one guy. Trained operatives. He's the one guy that survives a helicopter crash because he gets thrown free of it, I guess.
And then the second time, I can't remember what he did, but the second time was when he got his leg injured.
Oh, that was the explosion at the end. With closing of the portals.
Yes. Tim was a lot of fun. There were a couple of points where he he gets kind of really dramatic and like screams at people to tell them to do the right thing, and that almost felt like kind of a cop out for the situation. Like they just really needed to get something done, so Tim would just yell at someone. But it only happens. Actually, now that I think about it, I think it only happens in 2 different episodes, and then he kind of goes to being jokey Tim, because his leg's injured and all of his jokes are about his injured leg.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Tim was a good character. The people that I feel who were the most convincing for me personally were May's mother and then Kentaro's mother. Kentaro's mother being Emiko, and May's mother was, I've got it in here. Well, actually, she doesn't have a name. So anyways, Emiko and Korra's mom. Emiko, I love how she developed, because like in episode 1, just in the house, she seems both determined to find answers, but also kind of defeated in her relationship. This was like a confirmation for something that she's felt for a long time. But at the very end, she was equally as determined to be done with Hiroshi after he returns, because she, like, I didn't write it down, but her final line to him was like, basically, make sure you keep a good relationship with your son, and puts the wedding ring in his box that she handed to him.
It was a big bait and switch.
Yeah.
Because he was there grabbing some stuff from his apartment, and his son is frustrated with him, and his wife is frustrated with him, and the way that she's speaking to him is that, you know, it's important that you're here. It's important to be a part of your son's life. And you can see that he's smiling. He's like, yes, you're right. And then she drops the ring in his box and says, be sure to let him know what your address is.
Yeah, there you go.
And it was a good bait and switch, because I was going, oh, she's okay with everything. Huh.
Yeah.
All right. No, she's not.
Yeah.
she's no, I'm done.
She's like, I got my answers. We're good. No, Emiko was great. And then I mentioned Korra's mom, and she's only in, I think, the 1 episode where
we see her only in 1 episode. She is on the phone in the first episode,
yeah.
and I think again a couple episodes. And you think that she's kind of being the crazy mom, you know, just, you know, harassing her daughter. You know, why aren't you calling me? Well, I'm the most important thing right here. But I mean, you get it, and then you meet her, and I really liked her character, although she had a lot to all of a sudden deal with as well, and she handled it a completely different way than Kentaro's mom, where she was trying to be open and trying to be like, oh, you should come inside. You must be tired. But then a box falls or something falls, and Ken like bends down to pick her up, and she like yells at him to don't touch it, because she's still processing the fact that her husband was leading a double life and did have another family. It wasn't just that he was cheating. He had another family, another son, you know, another child.
That's Kate's mom, Korra, or May's mom. I should say May, because she's only Korra in 1 episode. Korra's mom, and it's specifically her acting, because it's the you know, the older black woman, older, middle-aged, but her short scene where Kentaro, Kate, and Tim are talking to her, she's
and the sister's there too.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
The sister, you can tell, is smelling some BS. And the mom, it's like, I feel like in her acting and the way she delivers it and the way that she looks, the mom also doesn't really believe, but she is so desperate that she is like eating everything. She's like, give me anything about my daughter. She is so desperate to have any type of an answer that she'll take anything that they give her.
Well, they find out it's been like 2 years since she's been home.
And she only calls about once every 9 months.
Yeah.
So, but I liked her performance in such a tiny scene because you can feel like the desperation and the sadness, but I feel like you can also see the disbelief, but she's just succumbed to like, I will take anything that I can get, about my daughter.
Well, she doesn't know when or if she's ever going to hear from her daughter again, because her daughter just took off.
Yeah.
And has been gone. Who knows where. And then when she finds, you saw her in Japan?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's where she is.
3 people show up, and that's the closest she's been to her daughter in 2 years.
Mm-hmm. I mean, Tim was on the ball, though, when he was being questioned.
Oh, yeah. He was great. I loved his responses. But because when he was talking about, like, she likes shoujo, and I think they do call out
Tokiyama.
Yeah, they call out Toriyama, and just like naming random popular things, and it's like, yeah, I don't even think May would read that stuff. So, actors aside, because they did really have like a very stacked cast. You did have one new scene with John Goodman. Anders Holm.
I don't know when exactly that happens during Skull Island. I was just going back, like trying to think, like when Bill Randa would have had that moment to set up, pretty much the show, because he was running. He had a bunch of the videotapes. He's running from the forest from one of the creatures that we saw on Skull Island. Then we see a new creature. Maybe I forget if we saw that during Skull Island or not.
The like crab thing.
The crab.
Yeah, that is. I think technically new to this. I don't think they had that in the Skull Island animated series.
They did have big crabs in. Let me make a cream for that. They had them in the animated Skull Island cartoon. I remember that. I think near the end they had giant crab.
They were the rock ones, right?
Yeah, they were coming out of the
ones
sand.
In sand. Okay, because when I looked it up, I couldn't find the exact same beast name, but those are mantle claw is what they're called. Yeah, I don't know when that would have happened. I feel like there's already some inconsistencies here. The biggest one that we haven't really touched on is the time difference between Hollow Earth and regular Earth.
So there's 2 things about that. And I had the time difference and also the fact that in Godzilla versus Kong, they talk about how you need specific tech so that you don't get ripped apart when you go into Hollow Earth. So when they go into this location, it certainly looks different than the Hollow Earth that we saw in Godzilla versus Kong. Mm-hmm. So... And then, while they're even talking about it, I forget if it was Shaw and who else, but they started talking about how they don't believe it was actually the true Hollow Earth, that it was like a world between worlds. Like you went through a portal, but you got off an exit on your way to Hollow Earth, and you're in a cavern somewhere under the crust, but not quite Hollow Earth. And that's why it's operating differently than Hollow Earth and planet or the top Earth, because during Godzilla versus Kong, there was no time difference from the people who went into Hollow Earth all the way to Hollow Earth, and then what was happening on the surface with Godzilla. There no matter of time, and it seemed like. I tried doing the math, but it kind of seemed a little inconsistent on how much time down there was how much time above. Sometimes it seemed like, all right, roughly a day is roughly a year-ish, because Shaw was down there for
A week.
I think he said just
I think
over.
He said about a week, or
I thought he said
something like
2
that.
weeks. I thought he said
Okay.
over 2 weeks, and that worked out to be 20 years.
Yeah.
And then Shaw and the kids go back down there at the end to Axis Mundi, and they're down there. They arrive. Yeah, they arrive during the day. They go through night, and then it's the next day they continue traveling, and then by the next night they are sucked back through to the regular world, and it's been about 2 years.
Yeah.
So in my mind, headcanon, it's like, all right, a day-ish in Axis Mundi is about a year above.
Okay, so Shaw was only there for a week on his mission, because I have a note for that. So that seems inconsistent. He was there for a week, and it was 20 years. She's 57 days, but that was from
59?
59, yeah.
Was it 59?
All the way to
she disappeared?
2015.
I mean, that works out. That works out to be 56.
Okay, so I guess
that I think was one of the reasons why I went, all right, maybe it's about like a day for a year.
And that's why Shaw is extra confusing.
I swear, I mean, I might be wrong, but I thought he said over 2 weeks. But
maybe the note that I took just might have been when he's just kind of offhandedly saying, it's a week. Either way, the time skip thing, I'm kind of interested in how they're going to explain that, because this comes after GVK. And now they're adding like a second layer to Hollow Earth. But they did still do kind of... I thought they did kind of a similar... When they fell through the portal, that it had like 2 worlds in it, but... I could be mistaken because it's also foggy. There is no like sunlight there. It was kind of overcast and aurora borealis the whole time.
They even brought that up of why is there light down here? Where was it coming from? And that was something I know they brought up in GVK as well, of like how is there sunlight? Why is there light down here if we're inside Hollow Earth? And I forget the reasoning why. Exactly, but this is something that may come up in Godzilla Fucks Kong, or whatever it translates to. Godzilla X Kong, when that releases in... Is that March? I think that's a March release.
March 29th, yeah.
Yeah, I'm excited for that. They may not even mention it, and this is where... Again, getting back to Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., like, they did stuff that was going alongside MCU and directly connecting, but then they did stuff that didn't really connect and worked just within the show itself. And the fact that they named a different location and even said, yeah, I don't know if this is truly Hollow Earth. Yeah, I really don't know. This seems like a world between worlds. And when Shaw first got pulled down there by, I think it was an ion dragon, you saw them in what looked like a bunch of different essentially space tunnels, and the ion dragon went like one direction and took an exit, or went back to Hollow Earth, and then they get sucked off to the right and went someplace else completely. That's how I took it. I could be completely wrong, but that's how I was looking at where they ended up, and that it's the Titans can get back and forth. They can navigate. They have whatever senses they need.
Yeah.
Humans are just trying to figure it out. I mean, at least in the 50s, they were trying to figure it out. Come 2017, they did figure it out.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's interesting. I'm very interested in how they're going to explain this, I'm interested in the why. Why are they adding something else? This has to come into play. I don't know. We'll see what GXK holds, or season 2 of this, if they end up doing one. Because it's like this, I think, has the most questions, is what is happening, because GVK didn't show this, this result of being there. Now, I guess the other main, the biggest topic to talk about from this show would be the kaiju themselves. What did you think about the different designs? What were your opinions? Do you have a favorite?
I mean, we didn't get a ton of kaiju. I mean, obviously Godzilla always looks good. They did a great job, with this being a television series. They still jumped in with all the special effects and everything. And he looked great. We saw him a few different timelines, and I love their reaction because we knew that when he was down at Bikini Bottom above where SpongeBob lives for the first time, you knew what was going to happen, and you knew it wasn't going to do anything. We know that he can tank an atom bomb exploding, but just their reaction of, "Holy shit, we didn't kill it," It's been, where the hell has this thing been? The Ion Dragon, I liked their creation. I think they looked a bit better than the Mutos. They looked, because the Mutos looked like too sleek. Like they were just like,
well, they looked alien.
What the right word would be. Yeah. They definitely looked alien, and just, whereas the Ion Dragon, you could tell it looked like scales, looked like leathery wings. I liked its look and its design, and it looked like it would fit in, someplace from Hollow Earth. And then we had the the giant boar? That was
Bramble boar.
Bramble boar, yeah. He would get caught on everything. I don't know how.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know why he was. It was a unique look, but living in a jungle like that, oh goodness, you're a walking coat hanger.
So I'm one of the quick side notes about him is I am excited for you to see Princess Mononoke, because when I saw the Bramble boar, I was like, I wonder if this is supposed to be kind of inspired by that movie, because it feels like it's two references in one. But yeah, they had good designs. The Frostvark I really enjoyed. That was the frozen one.
Mm-hmm. I was trying to understand what it was actually doing. So it could freeze things, but it was absorbing the heat.
Yes, so it wasn't technically freezing. It was absorbing all heat. So, with no heat left, things freeze. Because the first time I saw it, it obviously looked like it was freezing things, but I was like, it looks like stuff's coming out of people, so I'm kind of confused here.
Going towards it, yeah.
Yeah, and then the second time when you see it suck up fire, it's like, okay, it is like sucking, the heat and every last bit of moisture out of everything to the point where it is just frozen. That, I think, was my favorite design in the whole thing. The Ion Dragon is just fun. I feel like that one is, a great kid's toy kind of design.
Oh, yeah.
The only other kind of new kaiju is the Endopede, which I think was the one that basically
showed up. Yeah, right at the right at the end of episode 9,
pulled everyone into Axis Mundi.
Yeah, because we saw them. I think those were supposed to be the eggs that they discovered back in the 50s. That when that all of a sudden started hatching. At first, I wasn't sure, if those were supposed to be Muto eggs, but now it can't be them. We already explained that if those things actually hatch, we're all fucked. So it's got to be something else.
Yeah.
And then, oh, God, it's the Zerg. The Zerg have arrived. Or the Flood.
Little
Pick your pick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, overall, very cool, unique designs. I like that we get some new things, and they're definitely pulling, the Ion Dragon. I looked it up, but I didn't really write it down. But the Ion Dragon is kind of a combination of 5 or 6 real world creatures, and when you read the list, you can kind of see all of what they're supposed to be. We get the Mother Longlegs again. I really love that design from Skull Island. Mantleclaw, another great design. Endopede's just a big bug, don't care one way or the other. Bramble Boar is very Japanese anime, but Frostvark looks like it'd be a real fun cartoon, animated creature in the future.
I got I got it originally Anguirus vibes at first when it was kind of digging around underneath and then it popping up here and there.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, yeah, but it's not him. We'd have to pay a pretty penny to get him, and they wouldn't use him in the show just for like a throwaway.
Yeah, it'd be a disservice.
Yeah, plus he's got to be a lot bigger.
Yeah, kaiju, not a lot. It's not the biggest topic. I think the only last question I have with the Ion Dragon is like, where does the goose come from?
Which,
because it's like it's in episode 2. They have all this goose in there, and they're like, something's producing it, and it's like,
yeah,
what? And it like, how is it producing it?
Yeah, why is it what is it doing? Why is it enveloping the bodies? Because that gave me deleted Alien movie vibe.
Yes,
from that deleted scene.
Yeah.
You know, where I forget the captain's name, but he's been enveloped or is being enveloped, and the other guy has been turned into an egg, which is going to hatch a face hugger, and just how that was happening to the crew is, oh, this is weird.
And they were, like freakishly well preserved. Mm-hmm. Because that was from the 9 years. They'd been there, and it's like, they look like they've been there for about a week or two. So probably I guess maybe one of the final big things to talk about is the cinematography. It really, the cinematography stood out to me because of like the lens they were using, and I had to look this up. So throughout most of this, but especially all of the past scenes, there's like distortion on either side of the screen. So like the character may be perfectly sharp, but then as you get further and further outside, there's like a little bit of a distortion where they're not perfectly in focus. And then things at a distance, the like bulkhead distortion is almost like vertical. So things aren't perfect. It's actually kind of changing the shape of what the background looks like. Mm-hmm. And I feel like this was used sometimes very intentionally. Like there are a lot of instances where like it's just the lens they're using, so it just has its effect. People are centrally or like close to the center of the lens, so like maybe their shoulders or their back or something slightly off screen is distorted. But there were a couple of scenes, and I think one of the ones that it really stood out, I want to say it's basically when it's when Shaw leaves the military, like whatever the speech is that he's supposed to give.
Yes.
To help Monarch. He goes to Japan, and he's on a pier, and he's on the far right, and Keiko's like kind of a third of the way in or a quarter of the way in to the left. And she's like perfectly in focus, but he's in the distorted part of the lens. So he's not, he's in focus, but the lens has distortion on the outside. And I kind of really liked that from like a visual perspective of, he's the one who's kind of confused about things, but she's not. It is, I'm not going to say there's a whole lot of scenes, this isn't an Akira Kurosawa type film. This isn't, a Spielbergian thing, but they used a really good lens for a lot of scenes, and there are a lot of fun shots kind of peppered throughout the series. Did you have any particular opinions on how things were shot or sets or anything?
So for me, I don't have an eye for the visuals like you do, but that's also your job. That's a lot of what you do is setting up shots, taking shots, analyzing, using exposure. So you're going to pick up on stuff like that. I'm more of a filthy casual, a pleb, if you will. And I'm watching something just for the pure entertainment value. So for a lot of the creative stuff like that, it probably went over my head, or I just wasn't looking at it, or I was focusing on a different character and not necessarily on the peripheral or the whole picture. So probably most of that I missed. Nothing stuck out to me as in, no, that was a shitty edit, or that didn't line up correctly. If really anything in the show, it was more of, I think, like what we talked about with like character development, character writing. That I may have like kind of a nitpick with.
Yeah.
Presentation of how everything looked, I think looked really good. I don't think any of the special effects looked bad. I think Kaiju looked good. I think if anything was gonna look bad, I guess the toughest one would have been when Godzilla shows up in the desert, because there's a lot of crap happening. There's a lot of people falling. There's a lot of dust. There's a lot of rocks. That, I think, if I went back and watched, I could go like, all right, this is where you can tell they had a lot of CGI. They had a lot of crap they had to take care of. But for camera shots and scenes, I like the setup. Like that scene that you're talking about when they're out there with this gamma attraction receptacle that's floating out at what is dubbed Monster Island, which I loved. I love that little Easter egg. I just love the atmosphere. I love everything of what it is. You're in this quaint little shack, and the cinematography of just looking at this vast world and this other side of I don't know if it's a river or it's another island, but they did a great job with the cinematography of capturing environments.
Yeah.
That I think they did a great job with.
Yeah, for the most part, like it's not overall, I wouldn't say that it's particularly special, solely because it like everything is framed with everyone that's currently talking is like in the same shot, or just split between two, so it's just kind of going back and forth. But every now and then you could see that, there might be like one scene or two scenes that are trying to give you something else to chew on instead of just looking at people's faces all the time. Did you have any other, I guess, particular dislikes? Was there anything else? Because you mentioned like the, Godzilla in the sand CGI, and some of the character writing. Was there anything else in particular that stuck out?
Like in a negative way, or just kind of seemed odd.
We'll do additional likes, but was there anything else that since we've been talking about it for a bit now, that's popped up?
There was something else that made me think for a little while. When we are in Japan and we get the kaiju alert that goes off. I know they explain it later on in a future episode. But for a while, this was actually a part I had to look down at my phone and go, did Godzilla attack Japan? Why do they have a Godzilla alarm? Did that happen? And I didn't think that he showed up there at the movies. I thought that was the Muto at the nuclear facility, or like for me, I was trying to piece it together logically because it made sense in San Francisco, in America, of, all right, well, this is why we need that, was because of Godzilla. But I guess other places around the world just started doing it because?
Yeah.
I could be wrong. I mean, there's also, is it IDW that does the tie-in comics?
Yeah.
So there may be some stuff in IDW that I haven't read that ties in and just explains that. And to those people that read it, maybe a nice little Easter egg. But to me, I went, why? Why did you do that? It didn't pull me out of the movie, but it made me stop and start to research of what I was misremembering. And I guess I still don't know if I was.
If there is an explanation, it would be that San Francisco suffered, and so other companies or other countries are taking the precaution. Yeah. And San Francisco is just like straight up fucked. But there, it does bring up a good point that nowhere else do we see any type of protections in the U.S. They don't have missiles just chilling on overpasses near the airport.
Yeah, I mean, not that it's gonna, not that it's
Yeah.
gonna do anything. Oh, I do love that. I do love that they throw in the, and it's very tropey, but really, really connects with how the world is. That the taxi driver is
Has
saying
a
how San
podcast.
Francisco was faked. He's got a
Yeah.
podcast, and that it was faked because it was all CGI.
Yes, I really like that guy. I kind of honestly hope he shows up again, because when he mentioned he has a podcast, I was like, the other dude has a podcast from Godzilla vs. Kong, so maybe that'll pop up. Yeah, that I love the taxi driver. I'm kind of glad that they instilled that in the world, where it's not just the crazy dude in America who has a podcast. It's, a Japanese guy has a podcast about everything being faked as well. So I think one of the things that kind of oddly stood out to me, and this starts even in episode 3, I think it happened more, but it happened twice in one episode, where the general at one point was like struggling to salute. I think Lee Shaw was standing there and saluted first, and then the general, it's like he kind of like twitched and kind of then pulled his arm up, but it looked like it was difficult. And in the same episode, this is the one where they go to Korea in the future and meet Do-ho. And I don't know if the guy was actually struggling or if they were trying to like fill a few seconds of time, but the younger guard who first goes to the prison vehicle, when he reaches for the door, he's having a rough time turning that handle. Because he tries like 3 times to open it, and then I don't even think we ever see him open it. It just cuts to a different angle, and the door is being opened. So that happened a couple of times through the series, where they were just like, we don't have the time to reshoot anything. Someone would do an action that was very clearly like done badly. And
that's a cut you went with.
Yeah. It's not ruining anything. It honestly, like, I love the Showa era, so it just adds to the hokiness. But
oh yeah, you want to see some bad acting, go back in time and watch some of these old films. But that's not just Toho. I mean, that's films of those decades.
So that was kind of a thing that stood out, and it's like, I don't know, maybe in the future, hopefully they maybe pay more attention. It's because it's not in the background. It's kind of exactly what you're supposed to be looking at. Again, like the reason why I agree with that kind of like 80s, it's not a 10, it is that like kind of 80 percentile, is because of stuff like that, drop the ball in some of the acting, some of the performances, or some of the stories I don't feel like are delivered very well.
When they're sneaking around San Francisco, I think that also stuck out to me as being a little, I don't know how to describe it, but just they don't ask questions, they just shoot everybody. But then you see them not shoot everybody.
Yeah.
So maybe they were just saying that as a precaution to, hey, don't get caught. But there's clearly people still squatting there. There's still people going in, breaking in. That I think was a weaker part of it for me. Again, and this is me just nitpicking, because I liked it. Overall, was it perfect? No.
Oh, yeah.
Again, 75, 80, I think is a fine rating. I think it's accurate. And I think people that go above that are, I think they have some rose-colored glasses. And I think people that are a little bit below that are the ones that expected, well, every episode needs to have Godzilla. And Godzilla needs to fight somebody. And that's why I'm here. Instead of looking at the name of the show and understanding what the show actually is about.
That is definitely, how I'd put that as well. I do like it, and we both recommended it at the top, but there were those tiny little things. But as far as some of the more, I guess, focus likes, or I guess final points, I really like how they handled Kate's PTSD. She's kind of progressively overcoming it through the show. I think the final time that she has a PTSD episode is what you mentioned in the subway. Where May has to like calm her down and be like, look at me, focus on me, don't think about anything else.
Yeah, when they're in San Francisco trying to sneak around from the guards.
Yeah.
And when you see what happens, why she has that PTSD, it's not just the fact that she was on the bridge in San Francisco that Godzilla goes through. It was the fact that she was a school teacher who was cheating on her significant other, apparently at the time, or had split up with her.
Both of them.
Yeah, I guess. And then loses half of her students. Like, we actually see them. We don't see the kids die, but we know what happens when that school bus goes over the side
too.
And there were still
falls.
kids.
Yeah.
And that surprised me.
Yeah.
That they actually showed like that much of it. I figured that they were going to, I figured I knew where they were going to go, and that she's going to lose the bus and a child or a couple of kids, and that's going to be it. I did not expect them to show that actually happening and go, oh, fuck, okay. That explains it. Not just the fact that there's a massive creature who gives zero fucks about you and just walks on. At the time, he gives a fuck or two later, but collateral damage, and you lost all these kids that you couldn't save.
So they went hard. I was also surprised, like you said, with the bus scene, because you just hear them screaming as the bus goes down, and I was like, oh shit, like this is just how we're just starting with this, like 5 minutes into the show,
episode 1.
Yeah, everything from episode 1. Does reference back through the show. So like the way that I watched this was I watched the first 2 episodes around Christmas time and then finished the rest of it through this past week. And then today rewatched episodes 1 and 2 while taking more notes just to kind of become reacquainted from such a gap. And you can really feel a lot of the things that happen in the first couple of scenes that are like, okay, now that I actually know where they went from here and where they came before that point, it's like the very opening scene where Bill and Dr. Miura are together and Lee's in the back. Like their dialogue now makes sense because you get to see, Lee lost the girl and Bill got the girl.
Yep.
But
you don't know it at the time. You can tell that there's a little bit of like his reaction when they kiss each other. You go, all right, there's something there. I don't know what it is, but there's something there. But then by the end, you understand.
Yeah. And that, I guess that would almost be kind of like a trivia thing, but the love triangle is a very big deal in actually the first 2 Godzilla movies. The original and then Raids Again, having the love triangle where
I haven't watched Raids in forever.
Honestly, Raids is it wasn't done by Honda, and it was kind of roughly the same story because the director just kind of copy pasted, but he changed the homework a little bit by adding Anguirus.
Yeah.
But it's kind of the same thing where it's a girl who's in a love triangle. Like the person she's destined to be with and the person she wants to be with. But I like this modernization of it where Miura does want to be with Lee, but then realizes after more important things happen that Lee's not the right person. Bill is the one who's a lot more in line with her goals. And Lee always... He needs to be married to the military, and like the one point in time in which he's like, I don't have to be married to the military is when it's basically life or death for their future.
Yeah, that was the one time that she needed him to be just pro-military, just do your damn job. You have one job, it's to be here to talk to the people. And that really hits home after he goes to Monster Island. They see Godzilla, which they then have a moment, and you're like, oh, it's going to be great. But then they come back, and you find out that, well, now Monarch is under control of the Navy, I think. Was that it? They got moved from the general.
That really confused me because Lee's outfit changed and his ranking changed. He went from a colonel to a captain, but it's roughly the same thing. Or was it vice versa? No, I think it's colonel to captain. Because I was like, he's not wearing the same outfit. He's not under the same guy. And he definitely wasn't a captain. He was a colonel for the rest of it. So I guess they got absorbed.
He was an army colonel.
Yes.
And then I did not catch what he was in the Navy, but I know that the general Fuckett or Puckett.
Yeah. He was good.
Yeah. So General Fuckett even warned him. He's like, hey, you got to be careful, and whatever decision you make, I also have to make a decision. So he even warned Shaw before he took off, was that if he makes a wrong decision, there's going to be consequences. Granted, Shaw didn't think it would be, oh, fuck, well, the general has dumped me over to the Navy. But then that gets corrected later before everything explodes all over again.
Yeah. Yeah. General Fuckett, great character. So this is probably a good time to move on to like a tiny bit of trivia. There's really not a whole lot in here. Like, honestly, on IMDb, there's basically nothing. There are just things that I noticed. But one of the things, which you kind of brought up earlier, the tie-in comics, Lee Shaw is actually from Godzilla Awakening, which is made in 2014. It is part and parcel with Godzilla Aftershock. And these ones aren't done by IDW. IDW does the other Godzilla comics, but these were done by Legendary. They are Legendary's, like, Legendary Comics branding. And they have nothing to do with anything. Like, Godzilla Awakening tears a whole lot of holes in a lot of the stuff that this show sets up. So it's like, this definitely isn't very accurate. It's fun, but it's not canonical. And what is it? When Tim was in Japan on webcam, there's he's sitting in a chair with a long desk and the camera at a distance, and there's a chair in front to the right of him, and that chair has Legendary's logo carved into the back.
Oh, neat.
Yeah. So I don't know if you saw that, but was like, like the first thing that caught my eye. I was like, oh shit, that's Legendary's logo. God, yeah, I think that was really all that I had. Like I said, there's nothing really online, no listed thing online.
Let's see. I have some general trivia.
Okay, shoot.
With the exception of the scene set in Japan, almost all the filming was shot in Vancouver and other parts of British Columbia.
Makes sense. I think 2014 was too.
Mm-hmm. Let's see. Number of viewers noted that the shot at the very end of Kong pounding his chest in the jungle during the thunderstorm is very similar to the test footage of Kong's Skull Island that was seen at San Diego, which is known as a whale's vagina, Comic-Con in 2014.
Nice.
Yeah, there's not a whole lot of trivia. Just little things here and there that people like put out.
I get probably one of the only other things that's trivia, whatever, and a little jab that I really liked, but Shaw does comment that he did not like Serizawa. He's like, oh, let him fight Serizawa, whatever he called him.
That was old Shaw. That was Kurt Russell, who was, because Kurt or Lee at that point is he feels like he got screwed over by Monarch, which he kind of did. Mm-hmm. They pretty much locked him away. Said, "Yeah, all right, here, sit here. You know too much. we don't know what you know, and you don't know what you know, but you know too much, so go retire.
Yeah.
And he was just bitching about Monarch because they don't do anything. And Sarasawa
was the embodiment
let them
of
fight.
that.
The quote that we say, that we love. And Shaw's going, oh, those fucking idiots. All they do is sit on their hands, which we see a lot of, during this show. We see the army do a bunch of stuff in the movies, and we know Monarch's involved in the movies in studying and keeping track of these creatures, but they don't do a whole lot to try and stop them. Yet.
Yeah, not yet. So kind of in line with trivia, but not trivia. I actually did this on my last episode. I did not expect to do this again, but I found a few fun things. So I'm going to do some wild supposition.
Oh, you have an audio. Where did they all come from?
Well,
Wow.
I just call in a few favors. So, wild supposition, there were just like three things that I noticed that kind of stood out. Kentaro's mom is Emiko Randa, and she shares a given name with Emiko Yamane of the 1954 film. That is the daughter who is in the middle of the love triangle.
Okay, yep.
Her husband is Hiroshi, which I'm kind of wondering if that isn't supposed to be a nod to Hiroshi Koizumi, who is a frequent Godzilla film actor. He's, you would know the face if you saw it.
Possibly, yeah.
Last one is Keiko Miura. Her last name, I'm wondering, because like Matt Fraction is involved in this. He's a comic book writer. And because there are a lot of people who are involved in superhero related stuff, if Miura isn't a tribute to the late great mangaka Kentaro Miura, who created Berserk. But none of these are confirmed. That's why I just did wild supposition. There was no trivia about this, but I was like, hey, these things are awfully relevant.
Mm-hmm.
The series has no accolades. You're not really going to win anything, at least not yet. And there is, like I said earlier, there's no news to really share. No confirmation of season 2. If you search it, you will find a whole lot of misleading articles trying to be like, here's what we think. And I kind of really hate that. For resources on this, I didn't use them as much as I should have. But Scraps from the Loft has the transcripts for every single episode of this show.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. That helped with a lot of stuff, like finding out what people's names were. A couple of tidbits. There were some quotes that I missed out on. There was something else. I still need to look it up, but I swear multiple people said the word Junjira. Not Gojira, but Junjira. And I was wondering if that isn't supposed to be like Junior Godzilla or something. But I still haven't looked it up to see what the heck they were saying. And I didn't have subtitles on at the time. New York Times did a great write-up. I think that's where I got my summary from. MovieWeb for the list of the most frequent Godzilla actors. That's where I got Hiroshi's name out of. Wikipedia, obviously. Actually, Wikipedia is the most solid breakdown of each episode because they do per timeline per episode.
Which I really like. I've been using that since we've been talking, that they have it, typically it's between the 15 and the 50, whether it's 52, 54, 59. But then there are a couple where it's like, oh, it's 15, 62, 82.
Yeah.
That only happens, I think, in one episode. Pretty much you're just in the past and current timeline.
50s and 2015 for like the whole thing. But yeah, Wikipedia does a really good job of breaking that down. I use the Godzilla fandom site for all of the Muto names, the Titan names, and then a lot of people names whenever like IMDb or Wikipedia would fail me with like character or real life names. IMDb, obviously. Yeah, that's really kind of I mean, there's plenty more to talk about. There's 10 whole episodes, but I think this is enough. I don't know what.
This is a good intro before we break down every episode.
All right, so
strap
this
in
is only the beginning
for another. Let's see. If 1 hour is
Okay,
one
so
week,
if this is the axis mundi of the episode, so
we're
what?
gonna talk so long.
I guess before we fully leave, what would you like to see in season 2?
I would like to see more development of Monarch and what they actually do. We know now by the end that we're at the base on Skull Island. We know that they're part of that. We know that they are linked to Apex, which is going to come out, in the future in Godzilla versus Kong. I'd like to see a bit more of what Monarch's doing behind the scenes and explaining and tracking and being involved with more of the Titans, because that's a big part of the drive of this story is that they're trying to they reference Godzilla's attack as G-Day, and they're trying to prevent another one, but it looks like another one is coming. And really, they've only tracked Godzilla and maybe a couple other Titans or Kaijus. I'd like to see a little bit more. Did Monarch know about the other Titans? What were they aware of? Finding, you see little snippets in Skull Island of how Godzilla and Mothra fought Ghidorah, long ass time ago. So what other little things do they uncover about our past and our history? I want to dive more into the actual agency and what they do. Of course, giant monsters fighting is great, but that's expensive, and I don't expect the entire budget to go to that. If you have one giant monster fight a season, and the one that we had with Godzilla and the Ion Dragon wasn't massive, but hey, I was happy. I get to see Godzilla, and he got to beat the shit out of something.
Well,
perfect.
Even with the Frostvark, they saved money by it being a burrowing creature, but that they used it well. Like every time it was on screen, you're just like, well, someone's fucked.
Pretty much.
Yeah. So I really like what they did. I would like to see more of the what Monarch does. It'd be cool to go back in the past, see a little bit more of what Bill Randa and younger Lee Shaw and Dr. Miura did. With that,
we know Shaw didn't do shit because he came back and got locked up. So really, it's going to be Randa.
If they do it because there are some gaps that, I guess, Shaw also didn't do shit because he was gone for 20 years. It would be cool to see maybe a little bit more of them, finding more of the Titans that they have cataloged in GVK. Almost like a Monster of the Week feel, but I would also like to see where that's for the past era. But for the current era, like you said, I'd like to see where Monarch goes, where Apex goes. Because this is now Apex. And that, I love that, reference to GVK is AET is a shell company for Apex, basically. Or
I don't know if we'll be, I don't know if we'll get any of that with Bill, because Bill, they say it in this series that Bill, after losing Shaw, then he was all on his own, and that's where he fully went down the rabbit hole of the portals and getting to Hollow Earth, and that's why he ended up at Skull Island and ended up dying, but he ended up being able to confirm his suspicions, but that became his focus and his that was enveloping his life. So I don't know if we're going to get, I'd love to see more of him. I like the actor. I don't know if he'll be the one that'll get us around doing Titany stuff. I think he's going to be, he's going to be hyper focused on his ideals and less on the current titans that may be existing in the current
And
world.
they could always do it from the perspective of like the now satellite offices that they got funding for.
That they have everywhere.
Yeah.
I'd be fine. I'd be fine with that. We heard a lot about what Monarch doesn't do.
Yeah.
I'd like to see what they actually can do now.
Now, do you think, or do you want to see Kurt Russell return? Yeah, obviously.
Yeah, obviously, yes. I like Kurt Russell. I like him as an actor. I did like his character. Again, I like the young and old Shaw. And I like to see him come back. And we didn't see him die on screen.
Mm-hmm.
He's still in Axis Mundi, where he survived 2 weeks, and he knows how to get back home. Kind of. He doesn't know how he survived, but he did get back home. He could pop back up in season 2 or 3 or whatever. I don't know what they're going to do. Nobody knows.
But
maybe, it could be one of those things where, it's another year or two, but it's only a day or so for Kurt to figure out, well, I got to figure out what the fuck to do. Or, it's a what if, and he's way in the fucking future. Who knows?
So, I'd like to see him again, because I think it'd be interesting, again, almost like a Monster of the Week thing, him surviving, but maybe not playing as big of a role, because he's never mentioned in GVK. So, yeah. Or King of the Monsters, for that
you'd
matter.
have to have you'd have to have a good reason to mention him. Again, he didn't go to, if they're going with it, they didn't go to Hollow Earth. They went someplace else.
So I think it'd be cool to see him again. I don't know. I'm looking forward to a season 2. Hopefully, they're able to budget that. But yeah, man, other than that, thanks a lot for coming on. It's been great to finally have you on the podcast and talking about Godzilla. You're like the main inspiration for actually sitting down and watching this, because it's like,
really?
I mean, I was going to do it eventually, but it's like, when you brought it up, it's like, I probably should knock that out right now before it hits,
because I asked you about -1.
Yeah.
Because you briefly mentioned that. Yeah.
Like blazed over -1.
You talked to like 17 other podcasts about it. So you're like, no, Zach, I'm burned out. I don't want to talk to you about it.
Talk about it.
It's a great fucking movie. Just go watch it again. All right, fine. What about Legacy of Monsters? Oh, yeah, that's good. I'll do that one.
So glad that we had that, because I wasn't even, like, I knew it existed, but I wasn't thinking about it. And when you were like, hey, you want to do Legacy of Monsters? It's like, oh, shit, yeah. Like, that is out, and I haven't watched all of it. So, very fun to cover that.
It's worth if you don't get a free trial, you can sign up for your 7 days. I already used mine years ago. So Apple got my $9 for the month. That's fine. It's worth it.
Yeah.
It's a good 10 episode arc, and there's plenty of stuff on there. Go watch Ted Lasso. That's worth a watch too.
I was thinking about checking out the Foundation, the Isaac Asimov 2-season series.
Haven't seen that yet.
Yeah. So Zach, where can people find you?
So pretty much on Twitter still. Yes, I call it Twitter. Under Zach Deuce, just because my actual name was taken by some asshole that doesn't use Twitter. And for podcasting, I'm all over the place. You'll find me mostly every week on Neatcast through all of your podcatching apps. Or just search for the Neatcast on your social media. You'll find us. And then I'm doing stuff with Corey over at Podcasters Assemble and Disassemble. We're going into the Ghibli season. I am currently editing the last Unibrow, and that will be out sometime soon. Because that's the tie-in to the Ghibli season, which I've submitted my Whatever the first one
Nausicaa.
was. Nausicaa, yes.
Yeah.
So I was going to try to watch the next one, the Castle one.
Castle in the Sky.
Yeah, I was going to try to watch that this weekend, but my son wants to spend time with me for some reason, and
God,
I have
that's
no
terrible.
problem doing that.
I'm sorry.
I know. Yeah, but he's for some reason really likes watching football, so we're gonna do that this weekend. And every time I've said, yeah, you can stay up late. I'll let you. It's fine, buddy. I'll make some popcorn. And then he goes, oh, then we could watch Super Mario, because that was the first theater movie he ever saw. So
Nice.
maybe I'm doing that instead of watching football. I might be watching the Mario movie, but I'm not going to complain because that's a fucking awesome movie.
So yeah, Zach, you can find anywhere. He's
All the places.
Yeah. That's
Now
what I
in
said.
burritos.
Yeah, now in burritos. Look at this.
Yeah.
So for me, obviously you can find me here at The World Is My Burrito on social media, Twimby Podcast, email twimbypodcast@gmail.com. You can find me on 2 episodes at Christmas time of the Neatcast, the 12 Rants of Christmas and Milk and Cookies.
Yes.
Yeah.
Quite a few Neatcast episodes.
Yeah. So those 2 are the most recent, but yeah, I've got, I think, like 2 or 3 others. Every time Jer has a tummy ache,
Yeah.
I take over.
Yeah, we call on Corey.
Yeah.
Because he's our go-to boy.
Well, he's got some weird, funky news. And let's see. Yeah, Podcasters Assemble for the Ghibli season. And call to action, submit to that. If you've never listened to Podcasters Assemble or don't know what to do, just check out one of the more recent episodes or even one of the Godzilla ones. Because we covered, that was season 8, I think, was Kongzillathon.
That's what got me involved.
Yeah.
Was I learned about it and submitted, and now I'm a frequent submitter to that. And also Super Switch Club. Eric's got me in that. Any of the NES games that they do. I'm doing Star Tropics right now because that's on the NES, so I can actually play and contribute to Super Switch Club, which is Podcasters Assemble, but just video games.
Yeah. So look for him everywhere. Look for me everywhere. I did the -1 episode with Shortbox. I think that's on their Patreons only episodes, but that does mean that it'll be out eventually for like the regular, the plebes. But I think that about covers it. Again, Zach, thanks a lot. This has been a pleasure. So
Always good to chat with you, Corey. I appreciate being on, so thank you.
Yeah, I don't have an outro, so
You
Deuces.
still don't.
No, never.
You just keep saying my name. That's how you end it.
Yeah,
throws
Zach
me off.
Deuces.
Ugh, no.